What's up guys, it's Sam, arguably the best mage in the world, trollolol, and today I'm bringing you a Frost Mage guide for MOP, or anything after patch 5.04. After my Fire Mage guide went well, I was going to make this but never really had time, until now when I finally do. And especially as it's the highest mage spec now in terms of DPS, I thought this guide was more relevant. So I hope it helps, and yeah, I'm going to try and keep it short but effective. Enjoy! Okay, so I'm going to start with stat priorities, and this is basically what you'll want to get on your gear and what you're going to want to reforge into, because obviously not every piece of gear has your best stat, and I've noticed that in many cases gear in MOP has the worst stat for us, which is mastery. But anyway, the priorities are hit cap. You need to get this to 15%, which is 5005 rating in Miss Pandaria, at level 90 even. And yeah, this is obviously the most important because you don't want to miss things, because that is the biggest DPS loss, blah blah blah. Just get that, just do it, okay? And then it goes into haste, and then into crit, and then to mastery. So it's pretty straightforward. That's what that's your reforge priority. Obviously, though, well, or maybe not obviously to you, but even still, intellect is after hit in terms of DPS bonus, like in terms of priority really, because it's just the biggest pure stat in terms of DPS. So you're going to be stacking that. I mean, it's going to be on all your gear anyway, but yeah, stack in all your gems. And obviously not every gem is red, so use int/haste gems or int/hit gems depending on the colour, and enchant accordingly to these priorities. And yeah, that's the best way to go for Frost. So let's move on to talents and glyphs. Okay, so starting with glyphs, yeah, starting with glyphs. Glyphs aren't as important as they used to be back in like Cataclysm and obviously Wrath, but yeah, they're still good in terms of DPS. So the ones you do want to pick up are Evocation, because this basically gives you health, which is, as you know, gives you more survivability, and you're going to be using Evocate a lot, but we'll go into that in a minute with talents. And the other obvious one that actually benefits you is Ice Lance, because as you can read, it basically just turns it into a cleave effect. So that's a lot of DPS, as there's a lot of multiple or double target fights in MOP so far I've seen. And then the third one is more your choice, I'd say. There's a few you can take, so like Frost Nova or Ice Block. I've been using Frost Nova up to this point. You know, it's good for leveling, but Water Elemental's also a good bet, and I'll probably be taking that soon. But yeah, the third one's more your choice, as they wanted glyphs to be. And minors are not really that important, they're just more cosmetic things, but that's nice, makes things quicker when you go back to cities, that's nice, makes you blink the way you're facing, and this one is absolutely vital, because it makes you look sick, and it's good fun, and yeah, take it. Yeah, that was a little quick summary of glyphs. Let's move on to talents. Okay, so talents. With the system they have now, it is literally every 15 levels you get a talent point, and then you have 3 options to pick. And so this is obviously going to be just for PvE/raiding. Obviously every talent has its place, but anyway, let's get straight into it. The first tier, Presence of Mind, basically just makes one of your spells instant. That is the biggest single target DPS increase. So you're probably wondering why I haven't taken it, but Scorch is best if there's a lot of movement on the fight, because it gives you a spell that basically you can spam while moving until you can stand still again. And I've found that so far in MOP, every fight has been quite heavy movement, so most of the time you find yourself using Scorch. But if you can afford to stand still quite a lot, use Palm. The next tier is just for survivability. You can take Temporal Shield. I'd say Blazing Speed's worthless. Temporal Shield is basically just a heal that heals you back for damage, but I take Ice Barrier. It's just a straight up spell that shields you, gives you a bit more survivability, and it's frosty, so obviously Frost was supposed to take it, derp. The next tier is CC. It's not too important PvE, but take Ring of Frost, because it means you can control ads if there's a lot of them. Just place it down and control those ads. Next tier is also survivability, like level 30 was. The only 2 real options are Cauterize and Cold Snap. Cauterize basically just means when you die, you don't die, and then you burn to death, so it's a very lovely spell. Can be useful, but I take Cold Snap because you can get 2 ice blocks out of it, and it's a little heal that you can control, and yeah, should keep you alive. Okay, so the next 2 tiers are the big ones, the really important ones, the DPS gaining ones, the ones you want. How many times can you say ones, lol? But anyway, the first of these 2, they're basically dots, and there's one for You would say every spec, but every spell, so Frost, Arcane, Fire, and across all specs, but as it's only Frost Guide, take Never Tempest for single target. It's just slightly ahead of the others for single target / double target, which, as I said, there's a lot of fights. But if you do find yourself wanting a lot of AoE, I'd take Frost Bomb. That's just the best for AoE. So yeah, there are your two options. Level 90, yeah, these are the big boys. Invocation is the one that I often take. Basically it just means that every time you evocate, at the end of that cast you get 25% damage boost, and you get your mana and health back at the end of the cast, so obviously that's a lot of survivability if you can time it right with raid damage, and also the damage bonus is the main thing, so make sure you pre-cast that before every fight and keep it up after every time it falls off. The other option is Rune of Power, which you literally just place on the ground, and then if you stand in it and you do more damage and get mana regen. I think it is viable for Frost, but how often can you stand still? As I say, there's a lot of movement, so I take Invocation, but they're your two options. Okay, let's get straight into the rotation and cooldowns, and then you can go out on top of the meters. Alright, so let's start with the rotation. And we're back in Orc, by the way, which is a bit weird, but yeah, remember this place? You still have to come here a fucking lot though, because of the auction house, but that's totally relevant. Let's start with the rotation. In its most simple form, so like, it's a priority system, it's not too difficult. Basically, make sure if you take Invocation, or, you know, alright, we'll start with it if you take Invocation, just evocate before every pull, so, you know, that's when you're going to pop your pre-pot as well and all that stuff. So make sure you get that in, and then refresh it after every time the buff wears off. It's a 40-second buff, and you can obviously track it with however you do that, and then reapply it. Try and reapply it a couple of seconds before it ends, so you don't have much downtime on it. And if you have Rune of Power, make sure you're standing in your Rune of Power, believe it or not, and make sure you refresh it. And then after that, okay, so what spells are you going to be casting in your rotation? It is pretty simple, don't worry. And what it is you keep your Never Tempest up at all times, as that's your dot. Don't obviously open with it though. Precast a Frostbolt beforehand, and as you may have guessed, you're spamming Frostbolt. So let's just imagine I'm precasting. And then always be spamming your Frostbolt unless you see procs, which come up here as well. And the two procs you can get are Fingers of Frost and Brain Freeze. Brain Freeze equals a Frost Firebolt for free that does more damage. So as I say, refresh my dot here. And so that is priority. And then priority after that is Fingers of Frost, which is, as you can see here, free Ice Lance. You can get up to 2 of those. So yep, just basically a case of casting Frostbolt, keeping your dot up, and when the button lights up you hit it. It's not too complex. We haven't actually had a Frost Firebolt proc yet, but you will get one at some point. I'm being mugged off here, but yeah, hopefully you can get it from that. And now I'm going to talk about the cooldowns that make this rotation a little more complex and make you do the more damage. Okay, so the last thing before I go into how the whole rotation looks and the guide comes to an end is cooldowns and how you're going to use them. And I'm going to start with one that was added with MOP or the new talent system, and in my opinion is the best of them all. I'm not sure if it is broken or if it's going to be changed or nerfed slightly, because it is ridiculous damage, but it is Frozen Orb. I'll just show you what it looks like. Basically that's a 1 minute cooldown, and it just chucks out this orb at your enemy, and it's fucking sick for AoE but also single target, and it just does a lot of damage, but it also gives you Finger of Frost procs as well, so you can get free procs off of it. It's just all round a great spell. That is pretty much every minute setup you use it. Try and use it as many as you can, and yeah, that's fucking good. Next up is Icy Veins, which hasn't changed at all. It's still just a 20% haste buff, and being that haste is your best stat, that's pretty fucking good. Try and use that in conjunction with like any trinkets you might have. So yeah, you can make a macro for that like I have, just call it Frost CDs or whatever. And there's not too many cooldowns. The next one is one that's not too obvious for people who have only just started playing Frost or don't really know about the class. Basically your Frost pet, Water Elemental pet, it doesn't just cast like Water Bolt, it also has an ability which is basically a Frost Nova. It's called Freeze, and upon clicking it or keybinding it, which it should be keybinded as should everything, you get this green circle. You then aim it and click it, and upon clicking you get a Finger of Frost procs. If it's just a single target you get 1, if it's multiple target you get 2, so obviously try and catch as many people as you can so you can get 2 and get the most out of it. And lastly, the cooldown that I think is the best of them all, and probably the coolest of all the mage spells, and probably one of the coolest spells in the game right now, is Alter Time. And for those of you who don't know what ult time is, it's basically when you use it, it takes into account everything, like your health, your position, the procs and the cooldowns you have. And yeah, it waits 6 seconds, and then after that 6 seconds you return to that exact location and like situation. So how you use this is you make sure you have all your cooldowns up when you use it, and that includes Bloodlust and as many procs as well, so you can get the most out of it. So literally, like, I'll try and get some procs and show you what I mean. I've got 2 Finger of Frost procs, I popped all my cooldowns, so I'm going to pop all the time now. Obviously if you can get a Frost Firebolt and a Bloodlust as well, but this is just to show you. And then I return there and it resets. So yeah, make sure you have all your procs and cooldowns up when you use that. But you can also use it to survive and things as well. Yep, that wraps up the guide. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope it was a help and you enjoyed it as much as you can enjoy a guide. And if you want anything else to do with this, maybe you want a video of how the rotation looks or how it forms in a real raid, you can watch my kill videos for that as well though. Or if you have any questions or comments, please leave them. And if it helped, sub, like and all that jazz. Yeah, peace out until the next vid. Bruvskis.